They knew the play before the snap. No disguise, no trick. Walter Payton, straight up the middle, 8 men waiting, sometimes 9. He took the handoff, hit the line, and somehow he didn't stop. Helmets snapped back, arms slid off, bodies got dragged forward with him. That wasn't supposed to happen. Not like that. In 1977, behind one of the worst offensive lines in football, Payton rushed for 1,852 yards, nearly half of his team's entire offense. Everyone knew, every single week, and still, nobody could stop it. So the real question isn't if he was great, it's how someone that dominant still ended up underrated. If this already surprised you, hit like and subscribe, because it only gets crazier from here. Before the records, before the nickname. So before anyone called him Sweetness, there was a kid in Mississippi nobody outside his town was watching. Walter Payton grew up in Columbia, not as a can't-miss superstar, but as the younger brother. His brother Eddie was the name people knew. Walter stayed in the background, quiet. For a while, he didn't even play football. He was in the school band, no spotlight, no hype. That changed fast. When he finally stepped on the field at Columbia High, the production came instantly. Touchdowns started stacking. Big plays every week. By the time he graduated, he'd scored over 100 touchdowns. Still, the offers weren't flooding in. No national attention, no major program chasing him. So he went to Jackson State. No spotlight, no national TV, just heat, hard practices, and long bus rides. And this is where it gets different. And Payton didn't just play, he worked. Relentless, quiet, almost obsessive. Hill runs, extra reps, training when nobody was watching. At Jackson State, he rushed for over 3,500 yards and scored 65 touchdowns. Finished 4th in Heisman voting in 1974. That should have changed everything. It didn't. He entered the draft without the spotlight most stars carry in, no media machine, no hype wave, and somehow that made him more dangerous because the league wasn't ready for what was coming next. When Chicago Bears drafted Walter Payton 4th overall in 1975, it didn't look like a dream landing spot. It looked like a problem. Chicago wasn't built to help a running back succeed. The offense was limited, predictable, one-dimensional. There was no illusion about what they wanted to do. Run the ball, and more specifically, give it to Payton. And defenses caught on fast. They didn't need film study. They didn't need disguise. They just loaded the box, 8 defenders, sometimes more. Every down felt like a wall waiting for him, and early on, it showed. His rookie year wasn't dominant. 679 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, solid numbers, but nowhere near what people expect from a 4th overall pick. That's where most careers start to wobble. But Payton didn't panic. He adjusted quietly. He started learning how to set up blocks that weren't even there, how to create space in traffic, how to turn broken plays into something useful. Sometimes that meant 3 yards, sometimes it meant something bigger, and then flashes started showing up, a run where he slipped through a gap that didn't exist, a play where defenders hit him clean and still couldn't bring him down. By 1976, the numbers jumped over 1,300 rushing yards. Suddenly, the same defenses that thought they had him figured out didn't. And here's what made it worse for them. Nothing about the offense changed. Same predictability, same pressure, same stacked boxes. Only now, he was beating it anyway. That's when the league started realizing something uncomfortable. This wasn't just a good running back trying to survive bad conditions. This was someone learning how to dominate them. And what came next pushed that idea even further. By the late 70s, something shifted. Not in the system, not in the scheme, in him. Walter Payton stopped trying to survive the league and started controlling it. Power first. He wasn't just breaking tackles. He was running through grown men like they weren't set. Linebackers met him square and went backward. Defensive backs? They weren't tackling him. They were trying to slow him down. Then the speed. If he got a step, it was over. Open field wasn't space. It was opportunity. Long strides, clean angles. He could take a routine carry and turn it into 40 yards before the defense even reacted. And just when defenses thought they had an answer, he caught the ball. Not as a check down, not as a last option, as a weapon. Out of the backfield, he moved like a receiver. Soft hands, clean routes. In 1977, he didn't just lead the league in rushing. He caught 27 passes, too. That mattered. It forced defenses to think. and thinking slowed them down. Then came the part almost nobody expected, blocking. Most star running backs avoid it. Payton leaned into it. He stepped up into blitzing linebackers and met them head on, not just surviving contact, stopping it. I'm protecting his quarterback like it was personal. That's rare, that's not normal, and it changed how he was viewed inside the league, because now it wasn't just production, it was completeness. In 1977, behind a struggling offense, Payton rushed for 1,852 yards, won MVP, carried everything, and did it without help most elite backs rely on. Think about that. No elite system, no stacked roster, no easy yards, just him. And it still worked. That's when the label changed. Not just great, not just productive, different. And the scary part, he was just getting started. Here's where the story flips, because everything you've seen so far still doesn't explain why Walter Payton gets talked about like he's just another all-time great. He wasn't. He played in one of the most brutal eras the league has ever seen. No illegal contact rules protecting receivers the way they are now. Defenders weren't just hitting. You could punish ball carriers. Every carry came with a cost, and still, he kept producing. Now look at the system he played in. This wasn't a pass-first league, not even close. Teams weren't spreading the field and creating space. There were no easy boxes, no defensive hesitation. Everyone knew what was coming, and still, he carried it. In 1977, Payton accounted for nearly half of Chicago's total offense. Think about that. Not a share, not a portion, half. That doesn't happen. Not at that level, not against that kind of defense. And yet when people compare running backs across eras, they miss it because the numbers don't look inflated. They look normal. That's the trap. Today's game creates numbers, spread formations, passing threats, on lighter boxes, more space. Back then, you earned every yard, which means if you dropped Walter Payton into today's NFL with modern schemes, spacing, and protection, his numbers wouldn't just improve, they'd explode. That's not hype, that's context. And once you see it that way, you start realizing something uncomfortable. He wasn't just playing the game, he was doing it on hard mode and still dominating, which raises a bigger question. If this is what he did under those conditions, what would have happened if the game actually worked in his favor? This wasn't finesse football. This was survival. The late 70s and early 80s NFL wasn't built for running backs to thrive. It was built to break them. Linebackers were bigger. Safeties were reckless. Defensive fronts didn't just stop the run, they attacked it. And every single week, Walter Payton ran straight into it. They hit him early. First quarter, fresh legs, fresh defenders, full force collisions at the line of scrimmage. They hit him late, fourth quarter, game already decided, extra shots, pile-ons, the kind of hits that weren't always about the play. They kept hitting him season after season, no breaks, no load management. In 1977 alone, Payton carried the ball 339 times. The next year, 333. Then 369 in 1979. That's not usage, that's punishment. And still, he kept going. He didn't avoid contact. He absorbed it, delivered it, sometimes initiated it. There were plays where defenders had clean angles and still ended up on the ground. That's not normal. Most backs wear down. You can see it. The hesitation, the step lost, the decision to go out of bounds instead of through a hit. And that never really showed up with him. If anything, he got stronger as games went on. That's what made defenses hate playing against him. Not just the yards, not just the production. It was the feeling that no matter how hard you hit him, it didn't change anything. And after a while, that does something to you, because when a defense realizes it can't break a player, the game starts to shift. And that's exactly what started happening next. By the late 70s into the mid-80s, Walter Payton didn't just produce, he set the standard. 100 yards stopped being impressive. It became expected. Week after week, defenses showed up with the same plan. Load the box, force someone else to beat you. It didn't hold. In 1977, he didn't just lead the league, he separated from it. 1,852 rushing yards. An MVP season on a team that still wasn't built to make life easy. And then he kept stacking seasons. 1978, over 1,300 yards again. 1979, more than 1,600. Early 80s, still over 1,400. Still the engine, still the focal point. Different coordinators, different schemes, same result. What made it heavier was the consistency. Not one explosive year padded by down seasons. This was a stretch where he was the offense every Sunday for years. And when the league finally started shifting, when the Chicago Bears began building something real, his role didn't shrink, it sharpened. He didn't need volume to prove it anymore. He picked his moments, broke games open when they mattered. Then 1984 happened. Payton passed Jim Brown to become the NFL's all-time leading rusher. Not in a perfect system, not behind a historic line, but through seasons of contact, through stacked boxes, through defenses built to stop him. That record wasn't just a number. It was a statement about durability, about dominance that lasted, and even after that, he kept producing, still hitting 100 yards, still closing games, still setting the tone. At that point, the debate should have been over, but it wasn't, because the biggest moment of his career was still coming, and it didn't play out the way anyone expected. By 1985, everything finally came together. The Chicago Bears weren't just good, they were overwhelming, a defense that didn't bend. It snapped offenses in half. Quarterbacks didn't read coverages, they survived them. The '85 Bears gave up just 10 points across their first 2 playoff games, not per game. Total. That's dominance. And at the center of it all was Walter Payton. The engine, the tone setter, the player who carried this franchise through the years when there was nothing else to lean on. This was supposed to be his moment. Super Bowl 20, biggest stage, brightest lights. The Bears didn't just win, they destroyed the New England Patriots 46-10, one of the most one-sided Super Bowls ever played. Everything worked. Defense, special teams, offense, history was being written in real time. But then something strange happened. Payton didn't score, not once. The greatest player on the field never crossed the goal line. Instead, a defensive lineman, William Refrigerator Perry, got a rushing touchdown. Think about that. After everything Payton had done to get them there, after years of carrying the offense, the moment comes, and the touchdown goes somewhere else. You can feel the tension in it. Not anger, not bitterness, something quieter. Because if you watch that game closely, Payton doesn't complain. He keeps running, keeps blocking, keeps doing the work that doesn't show up in headlines. That's the irony. On the night the Bears became immortal, their most important player became almost invisible on the scoreboard. And somehow, that says more about him than any touchdown ever could. But it also leaves a question hanging. Did that moment change how people remember him more than it should have? Off the field, the volume dropped. No noise, no headlines chasing him. Walter Payton kept it simple. Work, then more work. Teammates talk about hill runs after practice, extra reps when the field was empty, a routine that didn't need an audience. He didn't say much about it. He just did it. And on Sundays, you could see the cost. Hits that would slow most backs didn't take him out. He played through it week after week, carry after carry. You don't rack up over 16,000 rushing yards without absorbing a lot of punishment. He knew that. He accepted it. Leadership showed up the same way. Quiet, direct, no speeches for cameras. If you watched closely, you saw it in the huddle, in the way younger players followed him, in the way veterans respected him, and the humility never left. No celebrations meant to make a point. No need to remind people who he was. When he scored, he handed the ball to the official and walked back. Job done. That's the part that sticks. Not just what he did, but how he carried it. Because when everything slowed down, when the noise faded, you were left with a player who didn't need attention to prove anything. And somehow, that made everything he did feel even heavier. By the mid-'80s, the mileage was catching up. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic drop. Little signs first. The extra hit that lingered. The run that used to break free. Now getting pulled down a step earlier. The body doesn't lie forever. And Walter Payton had taken more than most. Hundreds of carries a year, thousands of hits over a decade. That adds up, but here's the part that matters. He didn't disappear. In 1986, even with everything piling up, he still went over 1,300 rushing yards. Still producing, still carrying his share, still showing up every Sunday like nothing had changed. That's not normal decline. That's resistance. He wasn't the same explosive runner from a few years earlier. You could see it. The breakaway speed wasn't always there. The game had taken something from him, but it hadn't taken everything. He adjusted. found yards differently, fought for them, earned them the hard way, because that's how it always worked for him. And when the end finally came in 1987, it didn't feel like a fall. It felt like something that had been slowly wearing down for years. He didn't slow down. He wore down. And even then, he left the game still producing, still respected, still standing as the standard, which makes what comes next even harder to ignore. Time changes how players are remembered. Highlights get shorter, context fades, and for Walter Payton, that context matters more than most. Today's game is faster, more open, built to create space, built to create numbers. His wasn't. He ran into stacked boxes, took hits that don't exist the same way anymore. Carried offenses that didn't give him help modern stars rely on, and still produced at a level that forced the league to adjust around him. That's the part that gets lost, because when you compare eras without context, you miss what made him different. Not just the yards, the way he got them, power, speed, hands, blocking, durability. There wasn't a weakness to hide. There wasn't a situation he couldn't handle. That kind of completeness doesn't show up often, and it definitely doesn't show up quietly. So when you step back and really look at it, Walter Payton wasn't just better than you thought. He might have been one of the most complete players football has ever seen. If you see Payton differently now, like the video and subscribe for more real NFL stories like this.